A single can of Monster Energy costs pennies to make. The company selling it just pulled in close to $8 billion in a single year, with a net profit margin sitting above 20%. That's a stronger profit margin than most banks. Today, we're breaking down the real cash flow of Monster Energy, where the money actually comes from, why one of the biggest soda companies on the planet quietly owns a fifth of this business, and why Monster almost never buys a traditional TV ad. Let's get into it. Monster didn't start as an energy drink company. The brand traces back to a natural soda company from the 1930s that got bought out in the early 1990s by two executives who eventually spotted a completely different opportunity. Energy drinks were exploding, led by a European import that had built a cult following. Instead of competing on flavor alone, Monster launched in 2002 with something deliberately different: a bigger can, a lower price per ounce, and a brand built around skate parks and motocross tracks instead of nightclubs. It worked. Within a decade, Monster had become the closest real rival to the category leader worldwide. Now let's actually break down where the money comes from. Stream 1 is the core energy drink lineup, and it's still the overwhelming majority of the business. The Monster Energy Drink segment alone, which includes the original green can plus lines like Ultra and Reign, generates well over $6 billion a year on its own. This single product category is doing more revenue than most entire public companies. Stream 2 is what Monster calls its strategic brand segment. These are the energy drink labels the company picked up from a major soda partner, brands most casual drinkers don't even realize are under the same roof. This segment brings in several $100 million a year and has been one of the fastest growing pieces of the business. Stream 3 is international expansion, and this is where a lot of the real growth is happening right now. Sales outside the United States now make up over 40% of total revenue, up from under 40% just a couple years earlier. Monster has been pushing hard into markets across Europe, Latin America, and Asia, riding on the back of a distribution partnership most people don't fully understand yet. Stream 4 is the alcohol brand segment, a newer and much smaller bet. Monster acquired a craft brewery collective a few years back to get into beer, hard seltzers, and flavored malt beverages. It's a tiny slice of total revenue, and honestly, it's been the company's weakest performing segment, posting losses in some recent years while the rest of the business prints profit. Here's the part of this story that surprises almost everyone. The world's largest soda company owns a meaningful piece of Monster. Back in 2015, that soda giant made a net cash payment of over $2 billion to acquire roughly a 17% stake in Monster. In exchange, Monster picked up that company's entire global energy drink portfolio, and the soda giant became Monster's preferred distribution partner almost everywhere in the world. That ownership stake has since crept up toward 20%, making it the single largest shareholder in the company. Monster gets access to one of the most powerful beverage distribution networks on the planet, reaching into stores in over 200 countries and territories without having to build that infrastructure from scratch itself. This is the quiet engine underneath everything else. Building a global bottling and delivery network from zero can take decades and cost billions. Monster essentially rented one of the best networks in the world in exchange for a slice of ownership. Now let's talk about costs, because this is where the story turns genuinely impressive. The cost of producing a can of Monster is remarkably low relative to what it sells for. Gross profit margins have been sitting in the mid to high 50% range in recent years, meaning for every dollar of product sold, the company keeps well over 50 cents before other expenses. Aluminum can costs, sweeteners, caffeine, and flavoring make up the core input cost. And pricing increases plus supply chain efficiency have actually pushed that margin upward in recent quarters, even as raw material costs like aluminum have climbed. Distribution expenses are a real cost, but a relatively small one, typically landing under 4% of net sales. That's the benefit of leaning on an established partner's trucks and warehouses instead of running your own from scratch. The biggest and most unusual cost line is marketing, and it does not look like a typical beverage company's marketing budget. Monster spends enormous sums sponsoring athletes, motocross riders, mixed martial arts fighters, gamers, and music festivals, but it rarely runs conventional television commercials. Instead of buying 30-second ad slots, the money goes towards sponsorships, branded events, and a massive roster of extreme sports athletes who wear the logo on their gear every single day. It's a fundamentally different marketing model than a normal beverage company, built on constant visibility instead of scheduled interruptions. So, what does the bottom line actually look like? Over the trailing 12 months, Monster has generated somewhere close to $8 billion in revenue, with net income landing above $1.5 billion. That works out to a net profit margin north of 20%, a number that would make most industries jealous. Put another way, roughly 1 out of every $5 that comes in the door ends up as pure profit after every single expense is paid. A few things that genuinely surprise people about this business. 1. Monster currently holds the second largest share of the global energy drink market, trailing only the original category leader, while operating on a fraction of that competitor's marketing playbook. 2. Coca-Cola Consolidated, one of the largest independent bottlers, alone accounts for roughly 10% of Monster's total net sales, just from getting Monster onto store shelves. 3. Monster's alcohol segment, the newest part of the business, has actually posted losses in recent years, even while the core energy drink business keeps setting new sales records. Not every bet a profitable company makes turns into a winner. 4. International sales have grown from under 40% of the business to over 40% in just a few years, meaning Monster's next chapter of growth increasingly depends on markets far outside the United States. So what can a normal person actually take away from how Monster runs this? Lesson 1. You don't have to build the whole machine yourself. Monster didn't spend billions building its own global truck fleet and warehouse network. It traded a slice of ownership for access to someone else's. Sometimes the smartest growth move is partnering with whoever already built the hard infrastructure. Lesson 2. Marketing doesn't have to mean advertising. Monster barely touches traditional commercials, yet it's built one of the most recognizable brands in the world through sponsorships and constant visibility at the exact events its audience already cares about. Meeting your audience where they already are can beat interrupting them somewhere else. Lesson 3. Not every new bet needs to work immediately to be worth trying. Monster's alcohol segment has lost money in recent years, but it hasn't dragged down a business that's still growing and still highly profitable overall. A strong core business can afford to experiment. Lesson 4. Margins matter more than size. Monster isn't the biggest beverage company in the world, not even close, but a gross margin in the mid-50% range and a net margin above 20% means every dollar of sales does far more work than it would at a lower margin competitor. So there you go. A drink that costs pennies to produce, sold through someone else's global delivery network, marketed almost entirely without traditional ads, generating close to $8 billion a year with a profit margin most industries would kill for. Monster Energy isn't just a drink brand. It's a case study in how much profit you can extract when you control the brand and the margin and let someone else handle the trucks. If this broke down something you never knew, smash that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Subscribe if you want more real breakdowns like this one, and drop a comment telling me which brand you want broken down next. Until next time, this has been MoneyBruh, and I'll see you in the next one.